Most contractors don't choose their projects choose them. Whatever bid hits the inbox, they chase, because saying no means people sit idle, and people sitting idle is the one thing they can't afford. So they compete on price, and their margins show it. Contractors who grow consistently get 60 to 70% of their revenue from inbound calls, not emails, calls. Owners picking up the phone before the project ever hits the street. And that happens for one reason. The contractor showed up during the quiet times, built the relationship when the owner wasn't building anything, added value when there was nothing in it for them. In today's episode of Construction Genius, Matthew Neuberger of Neuberger and Company joins me to take apart why business development inside most construction companies is broken. And the reason why is because business development is not targeted, systematic, and consistent. It's not on the calendar. It's not measured. It's not reviewed. It happens when somebody remembers. And in a contracting company with multiple jobs running under real time constraints, nobody remembers. Matthew brings the system, a specific owner list, a defined contact cadence, one weekly review question that somebody actually has to answer. But here's where most contractors get stuck. They build the list, they hire the BD person, they even get a fancy CRM, and the needle still doesn't move. Why is that? Because there's no one holding the people accountable for the business development activity. They've encouraged the activity, but they've never asked, did you do the activity? Matthew calls this out directly in our discussion, and it lines up with a framework I use with my coaching clients called EAR, Encouragement, Accountability, and Recognition. You're going to hear us reference that during our conversation. It's the engine that makes the system run, and it's the one thing most owners skip. If you think you're on the preferred list when you're really on the bid list, if you've hired a BD person, purchased the fancy CRM, and you're still chasing whatever bids hit your inbox, if you know who you should be calling, but you're not calling them, this episode is for you. Let's dive right in. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Matthew, welcome back to Construction Genius.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Eric.
Yeah, my pleasure. We're going to dive into some ideas around business development here today. That's going to be the main focus. Most contractors behave like they have to take whatever bids come in. How does a contractor earn the option or the ability to be selective on what they choose to bid on?
Well, I think this is probably the most important thing that contractors have to make a mindset shift around. And it's probably the least discussed by contractors. So, when you're dependent as a contractor on whatever bid comes in, you have no leverage to choose. If you feel that way, that happened by a default mindset, right? You kind of have to take everything because you can't afford not to. You got to keep your I got to keep my people busy. But What it does is then it forces you to compete on price because that's the only conversation a bid document creates. And so your margin reflects that year after year. So I ask every contractor the same question. What percentage of your revenue last year came from owners who called you versus owners you had to chase, right? And most don't know the answer to the question. So, the ones that are growing consistently, that number is 60 to 70% incoming. Not because they got lucky, though. It's really because they invested in relationships during the quiet period. And the call comes to them before the project ever goes public, right? It's, hey, I have some questions. We're thinking about a project, right? So when the owner calls you, you're negotiating on value, not competing on price. This is completely different conversation with a different margin attached to it, right?
You use the phrase quiet period, and I think I understand what you mean by that is like when I'm not doing work particularly for that owner or engaged in a project with that owner. But most people who are listening to this, they might ask, Matthew, where's my quiet period? Because every day I'm running super hard and I don't see where that quiet period is coming from for me to be proactive in my business development.
Yeah, and that's the hard part because the mindset shift has to come first, right, Eric? You actually have to decide this is something that is important to your business. You will never have a quiet period as long as you're playing the bid game. By design, you will always be so busy and so exhausted. The thought of growth in your business is unappealing, right? So selectivity isn't something that you claim. It's what you earn during those quiet periods. And so how do you do that, right? So do you want to talk about it sort of as a system, or maybe it makes sense to kind of think of it as, what do I have to recognize first, right?
Well, let's talk a little bit about a system because, again, I think if someone is going to be proactive in business development, and like you said, develop relationships with people when they're not building something so that when they do build something, their first thought is to talk to you. That requires a tremendous amount of discipline at some point. I talk with my clients all the time about how much time are you blocking out every week or every month to proactively do business development. Let's address it from that angle first.
All right, let's tackle the system problem. So two things first, kind of contractors, as you just pointed out, are busy. I've never talked to a contractor that has said, hey, I'm kind of don't have anything to do. No emails coming in, no problems, feet on the desk, eating donuts and reading, news on the internet. So when a job's running, all the attention is going to shift to delivery. Relationship development obviously is going to go out the window. And we can refer back to your EAR philosophy on this. But what I would say is nobody holds business development accountable. There is no accountability for business development separately from operations. Yes. I would say that's understandable. If a contractor is listening, I say that with love for you. I know that it's contracting is hard work. So the second thing is it's a structural problem. It's not in anybody's calendar, right? It's not measured. It's not reviewed. It happens when somebody remembers, boy, I should call XYZ, right? I'm not going to use real names because I want to keep everybody anonymous here in terms of owners. But in a contracting company running multiple jobs under real pressure, nobody remembers. It's a system to make sure nobody remembers to make the calls you got to make in order to get the inbound calls you need so that you're not doing the low bid, low margin work. So let me put it to you this way. So you talk about something called the hero culture, which creates a ceiling, right? And that's what this system, these two things create. So it's the exact same problem showing up in the business development as what happens in heroics on a project. When the BD depends entirely on one person's memory and motivation, you haven't built a system, you built a person, right? And people get busy, people get distracted, and people leave. So the fix isn't a motivational push, it's a managed expectation. And that goes beyond culture. You hear people talking about culture. I get that. This is just, is it an expectation, yes or no? Whether you call it a culture or not, it is not the argument, but sometimes it gets turned into that. Right? Yeah. This is what it is. I mean, if there's a lot of ways you can figure out whether you're doing this right, and I'll give you my thoughts on measurement and stuff like that. But if you want to just make it super simple for any contractor listening, it's a specific owner list. It's a defined contact cadence, and it is a weekly review question someone is actually responsible for answering. When all three of these exist, the behavior happens, not just because people feel inspired, but because someone's actually asking about it every week.
So let me just stop you there real quick, because one of the things that's popping into my mind here is that what contractors do, particularly larger contractors, is they have people who are responsible for business development. Sometimes those people come up through project management or some other kind of activity, and so therefore they have technical ability, but they don't necessarily have business development mindset.
Right.
And then sometimes people get brought in from the outside who have a business development mindset, but then don't have technical ability. And so they often miss nuances. And sometimes what happens is you hire a business development person, and you yourself are not necessarily a business development expert, you're a builder, and you assume that they are then going to do what they need to do as a business development person, but you don't either understand what to track or you don't communicate to them what to go after specifically.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to this owner list to begin with, because I think that's obviously, we have to go after right client, right project, right location. So how do we go about developing that owner list?
Well, the first thing is, I think the contractors know when you get a call whether or not you're excited about that call. So if an inbound call comes in for an opportunity, you usually know whether this is something we want or don't want. So I would say experienced contractors can tell you in 30 seconds whether they'd work with an owner again. Fair? I mean, we've both seen that, right?
Sure. Yep.
Anyone who's in business has clients that they're, or someone who calls with something to do and they're excited. And then they also have the people who call and they're like, oh no, do I even want to do this? So it's a gut feel, right, Eric? So, but it's built on real signals. And so if you're going to hire a BD person, the owner has to really set the tone first, which is, what do you want? Define that gut feel.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Okay, so let's stop there, right? So that you're right, there's a gut feel, but what is the logic or what is the experience behind that gives me the gut feel?
Got it. It's the right question to ask, because you can certainly say, well, I like multifamily, I like warehouse, I like data centers. I'm going to put that aside for a second and say, let's ask some simple questions. Does this owner respect our expertise? Do they pay cleanly? Did the final invoice on our last project turn into a manufactured dispute?
Yeah, right.
Did they introduce us to anyone afterwards? Those are the ones we want. And they're out there. There are owners like that want you to be successful. They need you to be profitable because you do great work. You understand them. And it would be a problem for them if you weren't in the market. And those are the ones that you want to work with. And we all have those. So the instinct is almost always right. The problem is that none of them have it written down. So it never becomes a system. The next generation doesn't inherit it, right? The new project managers don't learn it. Decisions get made based on what whoever's in the room or whoever's desperate enough to take the next bid. So the contractors that are winning at 35, 50%, which is what we really want to aim at with a system.
Yep.
You have to make the implicit explicit. And if you don't, they turn the gut check into a real question before committing anybody. And that question was, if this owner called me tomorrow with a new project, would I take it? Or would I get it on a negotiated basis or without having to compete? That's it. You can make it as simple as that one question. Now, we can go deeper than that, but if you just had that one question, 2 parts, the first half really surfaces the gut feeling and, do I actually want to work with this person, this owner again? The second half is the acid test. Do I trust this relationship enough to skip the protection of a competitive process? Everyone comes to us and says, we got this bid, we got it off of the Dodge report and we really want to win it. Help us win it. I'm like, man, you're late. Do you know this owner? Did you talk to them before? Have you done any work with them before?
Right.
Do you know anything about where they're taking their business? No? Okay. Well, you're in a competitive process now.
Think about the last time you promoted someone into a leadership role and it failed. Why did it fail? I can tell you one reason. People know how to build projects, but they don't know how to build and lead teams of people. Construction comes with its challenges that only insiders truly understand. Generic leadership training doesn't cut it. You need a program to train your leaders built specifically for construction professionals led by an industry expert. And my online course, The Shift, is exactly that course. It has 5 modules. It'll teach your people how to control their calendars and reduce stress and embrace chaos and accomplish their critical tasks. It will teach them the 3 essential messages they have to communicate every day in order to motivate and lead their team effectively. It'll show them how to build and lead a high-performing team, give them a framework for running effective meetings so they'll be able to solve problems in less than an hour, and also give them a higher perspective on their leadership that will enable them to work on the business and on their teams and not get stuck in the weeds micromanaging. So go out to my website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, read all about the course, and then enroll yourself and your leaders in the course, and I guarantee that it will transform your leadership. If it does not, you take the whole course and you didn't get benefit from it, you just send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, and I will cheerfully refund you 100% of your money. I'm really confident this course will transform your leadership. So again, go out to the website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, learn more about the course, and start taking it today. Let me just go back to what you said. This is really good. Does my owner respect that my technical expertise? Do they pay cleanly? Are we fighting over the final invoice? Are they introducing us to other opportunities? Now, all of that those are very simple, straightforward, almost yes, no questions, which are excellent. And from that, I can begin to develop a list of people that I want to do business with. But then I may want to expand outside of that list because I'm thinking, okay, so that's a particular pool of people, but maybe I want to expand the business, so I need a larger pool of people. And how do I then begin to, in my business development conversations, because I want to go on to this cadence here, how do I begin to suss out, so to speak, those particular things so that as I'm developing a relationship perhaps with someone who I haven't built with yet, I can begin to get a sense of whether or not they are going to respect me, pay cleanly, pay me the last invoice without drama, and then introduce me to other people?
Yeah. So the short answer to that is that you are going to have those that you've worked with. If you don't have a lot of history, I think the question you're getting at is, I have a BD person. Who do I tell them is on the list?
Right.
That they should call. So they should be, the nice thing about the construction industry and whatever market you work in, most owners have a reputation. So you should be able to define, what does that ideal project look like? Who are the owners I want to be in touch with? And then you need to make the decision that these are people we want to do business with because they fit that criteria I shared just a minute ago. Yes. And then you really have to do a couple of different things. One is you have to have that list based on that definition. You have to have a cadence of speaking with them. And then every 90 days or every week, you should be able to do a 90-day look back. Have I been in touch with those people? And what did I learn? In other words, sometimes we call it a horizon meeting. What is on the horizon for them? Did I teach them anything?
Okay, so just slow down. This is really good. What's on the horizon for them? Did I teach them anything? So I'm not just like grabbing beers and
no.
But that's important, of course, but I'm much more intentional in my interactions with them.
Yes. Yeah. To your point, you have to be very intentional, because think about it in terms of people you look forward to talking to and people that you're happy to talk to, but you don't look forward to it. The difference is the value in the conversation. So I'll give you a deeper example. So Eric, let's say you're a big owner and I am bidding on a project with you, but I don't know anything about what you're trying to accomplish. Maybe you have kids in your business. Maybe you're trying to develop them into the next leaders of the business. Maybe you're looking at expanding into adjacent markets. Maybe you're looking to create the next empire. You want to be the next big name in real estate. I have to ask questions about what's important to you and where are you taking your business so that I can add those value points in. So when something happens in the world, which happens every single day we're alive, we've got people that are, if it's tariffs, if it's a war somewhere, if it's oil prices, if it's material prices, if it's COVID, if it's AI, things are constantly changing. But if I know, Eric, what's important to you as an owner, then I'm picking up the phone and calling you with purpose, and I'm adding value. I'm saying, hey, did you hear about, what the county just did in terms of pulling building permits now? Are you aware of what's happening? Right now, I'm a trusted source of information. My value is here compared to everyone else that's bidding on a new project.
Key phrase there: trusted source of information.
Correct.
So what is the information that is valuable to the list of people that you've developed? What is information that you can provide for them where you can add value to that information with your expertise?
Right.
And then how am I delivering that information and that value to those clients?
Exactly. And I would say one other thing that would be the gold standard is where that client is trying to go. You know what they really want to accomplish. And I'm not talking about on a project, because that's transactional conversation.
Yeah, I get that. Let me go back to the cadence. One of the fears that people have in business development is that I'm being too salesy, and they relate that to cadence, where I'm talking to the people too much. I'm contacting them too much. Is there an ideal cadence that you've seen over the years that you can say, guys, it's got to be within this window?
Yeah, I would say if you're managing your list and you have owners that you're not talking to within every 90 days at a minimum, so much is changing within 90 days that you're no longer in relationship. They know you. There's a big confusion about I know that person and being in relationship with that person. So I would say if your list of or owners that you're talking to, you're not touching once every 90 days, you're most likely someone else already has that relationship.
Okay, so then I want to make a point here, which is very important. And again, contractors, you have BD people. Sometimes BD people think that posting on LinkedIn is business development.
Nope.
It is not. It really is not. And that's where that 90 days, see, that's a good gut check right there, because 90 days goes like that.
It does. And so to your clients, what you should say, one of the things you want them doing is sitting down with their BD person every single week. Who did you talk to in the last week? Let's see the list for the 90 days. Now, a lot of it's going to be stuff that you've already discussed, but what are we learning? What are we sharing? Any changes in their business? And that has to be a weekly conversation with a senior stakeholder in the business and the BD.
Yes.
Okay.
So we've nailed that.
To your point, hiring a BD does not absolve you of that.
Right.
A CRM does not absolve you of that.
Yes.
When we go in and we look at CRMs, the best I can say is it's a half organized filing cabinet.
Yeah, right.
So CRM doesn't absolve you. Hiring a marketing person does not absolve you. All those things are great, but you're shouting at the market and every contractor is doing that and you're not differentiating yourself at all. I'm not saying don't be visible, so don't misunderstand. But what I am saying is if you're not having a deliberate list that you are building a relationship with and understanding what's important to them, all the things we've talked about, and picking up the phone old-fashioned style and talking to them purposefully with an agenda, then not differentiating and you're back on the bid list. Again, bid list for me is not a good thing.
Right.
All right, quick break to talk about my book, Construction Genius. This is what I want you to do. Go to Amazon, search for the book, read all of the 5-star reviews, because there's a ton of them. Over 50 to be precise. And the reason I want you to read them is because real people wrote those reviews who've actually read the book. And it'll give you an idea of why you should go and buy a copy right now on Amazon. And here's the deal. If you purchase 10 or more copies for your company, and then send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, I'll come in via Zoom and do a 1-hour Q&A and a bonus training session with your team at no charge. I normally charge $4,500 for an hour of my time. And again, for you, I'll do it at no charge if you buy 10 or more copies of my book. And the reason you should buy it is all in the title. It's effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS, leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. So if you're in the construction industry, this book is for you. So you can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on Audible in the audio version as well, narrated by yours truly. And I know you'll really enjoy it. So go out and get the book. And now back to the interview.
One of the advantages I think about construction is because we're not selling software, we're selling buildings, and those buildings require people on site in order to build them. Duh. It lends itself very much to person, face-to-face, phone call to phone call, minimally, in order to develop relationships with people. And so we will never in construction get to the point where it's just like some seamless purchase of a product online where, I've never met anyone from Amazon, but I buy stuff from them all the time. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah, I do. At the end of the day, it's trust though. But think about it this way. I mean, if I'm an owner and I'm hearing from my contractor consistently when there's nothing for me to gain,
Yep.
There's nothing there's nothing the contractor is going to get out of it. It's just a conversation. That is where the trust that is necessary to put a bunch of people on site happens. Every construction project is going to have its problems. But are you the kind of contractor that has built that relationship so that you don't hide when those things happen and you don't blame other people?
Yep.
And so that's really what it comes down to. And I think this whole thing, if I were to kind of summarize, is that this cloud of busyness because we have things that have to get done and, we're trying to make money on the project and all those things. all the things that actually prevent that from happening, the busyness and the low margins and having to fight on bid day, are a systemic cause of not building the relationships in the market, or assuming you have the relationship but not testing your assumptions.
Let me ask you this. So I'm sure you've seen contractors who say, Matthew, I understand exactly what you're saying. I want to implement this. Why is it when they seek to fix their business development, they don't get the results that they expect? What goes wrong?
Well, I think probably one thing, I mean, you talk about this a lot in this EAR concept, and you may want to go deeper on that for people that are listening. So I won't jump on that concept too, but to say, I think that in most companies, the real accountability just isn't there. And it starts kind of at the top. And I hate to say this, if you're an owner and listening, please don't take offense by this, but take it to heart, which is, it's not doing an email. It's when you're putting a system in place, if you're a stakeholder, you have to make sure that you're, I'm going to go to your ear concept. You have to encourage, you have to hold people accountable, right? And where most of this fails is accountability. They bring in a consultant or somebody that can get people excited for the day. It's fun, it's entertaining. But when you look at what's moving the needle isn't moving.
Yeah.
And so it's fun and entertaining, and there's encouragement, right? Yay. And at the same time, there's no accountability. And we think we've checked the box because we've done the thing, and doing the thing, like talking about building your list, holding people accountable, having that weekly cadence, talking about the conversations we're having over the 90 days, that kind of stuff. Someone in ownership has to be part of that conversation. And that's usually where it fails. And it fails because we're too busy. I mean, in all fairness, Eric, you or I we're humans, right? If our day goes sideways at 8 a.m., training or development or holding somebody accountable is the last thing. We're trying to rescue a project.
Yeah. So then what I would say, and Matthew, you've referred to the ear concept. And so for people who don't know it, E is encouragement, and the message is you can do it. A is accountability, did you do it? And R is recognition, you did it. This idea of encouragement is really built into what we're saying, because if you develop the list with this person and they're very clear on the types of projects you're going after and the types of owners, and you direct them to the sources of information that you can tap into that are useful to those owners so that you have value to provide for them, even when they don't have a project for you to build, then you can look at that business development person in the eye and say, hey, you can do it. And then that cadence of accountability comes in. Did you do it? Now I want to talk about, though, let's just get very granular. If I'm going to hold my business development person accountable for going after that list and engaging with them in an intelligent way, when is the best time of the week to have that accountability conversation in your experience?
I've found that either the beginning or end of the week tends to work a lot better than the middle of the week. And that's because the rest of the world is either also spooling up at that time or getting ready for the weekend. So I highly recommend that. It should be at a time. Don't do it at the end of the day. I know some people are end of the day people. Come to the office, get there at 7. I know, oh my goodness, 7 a.m. and that talk. Get to the office at 7, sit down, have the conversation before the day gets crazy, because at 8 o'clock, people start coming online, and that's when the chaos and distractions will start. Or people that will also be in the office saying, hey, got a minute? You mind if I sit in? That kind of thing. So that's it. And you nailed it. And I really just fill out, just as a reminder for everybody here, to cement the EAR concept, which I think is brilliant, is that comes down to, in this case, a specific person who owns the list of targets.
Yes.
Okay. So you encourage them. You can do this. You can call these people, right? But this is your list.
Yep.
A defined cadence for actual conversations. And I do not mean, and you pointed this out, just to put a fine point on it, no email blasts, no newsletters,
right?
Real exchanges, preferably face-to-face or on the phone, and one weekly review question. How many owners on that list have I had a meaningful conversation with in the last 90 days?
Very good. Here's my suggestion. I would suggest having this business development accountability conversation right before lunch on a Friday. And the reason why is that I know, like, Friday afternoon for a lot of people, it's just like checkout time.
Right.
And one of the things that you could set up with your guys is I expect you to have a lunch scheduled on Friday with one of your targets. And maybe not every week, but maybe every other week. I want 2 lunches on Fridays. And you can have that conversation at, let's say, 11 a.m. And it can be like a half an hour conversation just before they go out for their noon lunch with one of your target clients.
You know what would be fun? It'd be fun to challenge your listeners to come back and test both and see which one works best. That would be interesting. I like where you're going. I think it's interesting. One of the things I know is just like anything, testing is always A/B testing, and trying an early morning, trying it right before lunch. It'd be interesting to see. So I don't know if any of your listeners would engage, but it's an open invitation for the listeners here. Try it and see which one you like better, which one gets the results for you, because it could be different based on your culture, your office, your people. When you start your projects in the morning, all that stuff takes it from generic to specific for you. But
I like that. So for a contractor listening right now who recognizes themselves in this conversation, particularly when they're saying, I know who I want to build for, I'm not consistent either myself in reaching out to them or holding my BD person accountable, or even, here's another thing. Let me just say this. Feel free to put some of this business development responsibility on your project managers. They're the sneaky experts. What I mean by sneaky is that they're the hidden experts in your company who really can have a huge business development impact if you give them an expectation to be involved in that activity. Maybe not as intense as a specific business development person, but put some of the weight on them. But having said all that, what's the first move for someone listening who kind of recognizes themselves in this conversation?
Figure out where you actually stand. Eric, most contractors think they know. And again, I'm saying this because I just want to give people the truth. And sometimes the truth isn't the thing that everyone wants to hear. I would tell you that when I ask, most of them think they know. They don't. And most of them, they're just wrong. And it's not about right or wrong. It's about, are you getting 60 to 70% inbound negotiated work, right? So you think you're on the preferred list when you're on the bid list. They're 2 very different things. The difference between these 2 things is your entire margin. So one of the things that we did, I think there's enough content here that if your listeners just did this, what we've talked about today, I think you've nailed it. I mean, I think it's like 80% of you've solved the problem.
Yep.
If you want to go deeper, one of the things we've done is we built an assessment that has a bunch of questions and will tell you where the leaks are in your process of business development. But it's way more involved, and I really believe that, if somebody wants that, I'm happy to share it with you and your listeners. But I believe if every single contractor we've come across isn't doing the things we've already talked about on this show.
Yeah. But let's say they want to take that assessment. I'd like to drop a link in the show notes to that assessment if we can.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll share that link with you.
Excellent. Yeah, share that link. And so if you want to take that assessment, other than what we've talked about, what will that assessment dive into?
So it shows you exactly where your approach to winning work is solid and where it's really leaking revenue. So not generic sales advice, because you can get that off of ChatGPT if you want, or Gemini or whatever you use. But it's the specific pattern that predicts. It's really looking at the patterns that will tell you or how to predict whether you're getting the call before the RFP or you're waiting for the bid invitation alongside a bunch of other contractors.
Yeah, there it is right there. Yeah, when are you getting the call? Okay, excellent. So we'll drop a link in the show notes to that. Feel free to check that out. Matthew, just tell us a little bit more about yourself for people who don't know you and how folks can get in contact with you, please.
Sure. So Neuberger and Company is a Sandler training franchise. We own licenses in different parts of the country, but we work with contractors everywhere. And Sandler, for those people that don't know, is a sales and sales management franchise organization. What we've done with it is we've taken it specifically and focused it on the industrial space. And what that means for your listeners is contractors. So we have to understand how to help contractors develop business. We don't get into working on project management and things like that. We're simply focused on how do you create an organization that generates all the business that you want and the type of business that you want.
Yep. Excellent. And how can people get in contact with you?
The best way is, certainly if you just, search Matthew Neuberger online, you'd find me. I'll give you my contact information you can share with everybody. But my email is Matthew, MATTHEW, at neubergerco.com, which is spelled NEUBERGERCO.com. And certainly be happy to answer any additional questions that came forth as a result of the show.
Excellent. So all of that will be in the show notes so people can get in touch with you. Matthew, really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us here today.
My pleasure, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty, that's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for listening. If you recognized yourself in the conversation, do something about it before next week's bid list rolls in. Matthew put together a sales assessment that shows you exactly where the leaks are in your business development process, where you're solid, where you're losing revenue. The link is in the show notes, so feel free to check that out. And it is a free assessment. And also Matthew's contact information is there. And if you want to talk to him directly about how to improve your business development, feel free to reach out to him and let him know that you heard about him on the Construction Genius podcast. And if this episode hit home for you, do me a favor, share it with other people and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, and leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, give me a subscribe there. Subscribe is not an easy word to say. And then also give us a like on the video. Awesome. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity, and to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.